So I sort of vowed a little while ago that I would not review this game, ARK Survival Evolved, because I was incredibly angry with it. For those of you that don't know, about 8 months ago, ARK Survival Evolved announced it would be getting the paid DLC ARK Scorched Earth. The only problem with this is that ARK is a Steam Early Access game. You see, the whole point of Early Access is that you pay for a game before it's finished, and then you receive content updates from the developers until eventually they finish the game. Now, of course, with Early Access, this never actually happens, as to me it seems a game would rather be top of Steam Early Access charts than bottom of full release charts. This is why so many games on Steam Early Access are just never finished. Many games will just reach a point of stagnation where either the developer leaves with the money they made, or the game slowly adds microtransactions and kills its community. But ARK was sort of different. It took the money we were giving it to finish its game and funneled it into the Scorched Earth DLC. A DLC some say is so different it almost acts as its own game, as if that makes it better. After ARK released this paid DLC, I decided I didn't want to review it because the business practice just seems so scummy. But now I've taken about 8 months to cool down, and I want to share my thoughts on this first-person open-world action survival game with dinosaurs. So let's start with what I always start with, the gameplay. ARK starts off like a lot of these games start off. You are naked and on a beach with nothing. You will start with the classic punching of a tree, craft primitive tools from stone, flint, and wood, as well as gather fibers to hold these tools together. And after that, maybe you will craft yourself some clothes. The game for the most part is pretty realistic. Starting off, you might wonder though where and when you will be able to do all of the cool stuff you saw in the ARK trailer. When am I going to get to ride a brontosaurus, or shoot a gun, or fight a dragon? The simple and honest answer is that if you are a casual gamer, you probably never will. The resources and sheer time required to be able to do those things is going to take a very dedicated person who wants to spend a lot of their time in this game, and thanks to the game's leveling system, you will certainly not be anywhere near the top for a rather long time. While it is still a very time-consuming experience, luckily things have been balanced since the launch of the game, and double XP and tame weekends are pretty common now, making the game feel a lot easier and a bit less grindy than it originally was. Now I want to talk about the leveling system in this game. Starting off the game on an official multiplayer server means that you will be going at the regular pace the game wants you to take, which is pretty grindy. Everything you mine, gather, or kill gets you a small percentage of experience to the next level. With each level you gain, you can upgrade your stats like health or movement speed or oxygen capacity, as well as gain access to more technologies and more points to unlock those technologies. In the beginning of the game, you have to make tactical decisions on where you will spend those upgrade or engram points that you earn with each level. You will decide whether or not you learn a thatched door for your house or a pair of pants for yourself. Everything in the game is decided through these engram points, and unless you find blueprints, your crafting arsenal is based on your own decisions. The main idea behind this system is that in order to unlock everything, you will have to play with friends, but you don't really need everything. It gets to be a little annoying at some points, particularly because every item is awkwardly mixed in with each other, from tools to weapons to structure pieces to saddles for dinos. I think the structures are the most annoying though, because you have to buy each separate piece individually. For example, a foundation, doorway, door, wall, window frame, and window are all pieces that you have to buy separately from each other, which is just a little odd. When it comes to things like pipes, you have to buy irrigation pipe vertical, irrigation pipe straight, and you have to do this separately. It's just kind of weird to me. Like, imagine having to build with Legos, but having to learn each separate Lego piece individually. It's just a little strange. Thankfully though, you don't need a lot of things, so you're going to have a lot of the necessities that you need, like pipes and stuff like that. And you can just allow your points to save up with every level. You don't have to spend them, which is kind of nice. Now, one great thing about the technology tree is that technology is stacked, so you won't be able to bypass buying the slingshot for the bow and arrow or the bow and arrow for the crossbow. In order to get the crossbow, you will need to have learned the slingshot and bow and arrow first, no matter what level you are. This is good, as the game makes clear the technology you learn in the beginning does have value to the end game. If you buy a slingshot at level 5, you aren't going to be penalized later on when the crossbow gets unlocked. You needed the slingshot. You won't be able to build metal bases without knowing how to build thatch bases first, which is nice. This does, however, render a decent portion of fun unlockable things totally useless. There are sets of drums and banners and signs that you don't really have much use for when they are competing with the necessary items. The saddles for all the different dinos also seem useless to a new player. You don't need to know lower level dino saddles for the higher level dinos, making a majority of dino saddles totally useless. And the real problem with it is like everything else in the game, every saddle is separate. So of like the tons of dinosaurs in the game, they all have their own individual saddle that you have to learn, which is just, it doesn't make sense to me. As a design decision, that doesn't make sense to me. If you're gonna have dino saddles, why not have it be small dino saddle, medium dino saddle, and large dino saddle, instead of like 50 plus different saddles that you have to learn? It's dumb. It's dumb to me. While we are on the subject of dinosaurs, let's talk about them. They are this game's main selling point. If you are able to go through the trouble of tranquilizing a lower level dino like a Triceratops, you will be able to fill its inventory with berries, and if you keep it knocked out, they will eat the berries and become loyal to you in about 30 to 60 real life minutes. Sounds relatively fair, right? Well, say you want to tame a T-Rex. How long is that gonna take? 2 hours? 3 hours? 4 hours, God forbid? 6 real life hours to tame one T-Rex? Now, yeah, that's ridiculous. But the way this is supposed to work is you're supposed to tame other dinos, like scorpions, and then if you mate scorpions, you'll get an egg, and then that'll drive the T-Rex tame time down to about an hour. Now, this means that your first tames will be significantly harder than those that come after it, which highlights, I think, a main problem a lot of higher level players encounter. The game starts off hard, really hard, like dying every 5 seconds hard. But as you progress, the game just becomes easier until it is eventually a cakewalk for the higher level players. The game tries to counteract this with high level bosses to fight and futuristic tech tiers to unlock, which, to their credit, do kind of solve the problem. Also, the unfairness to lower level players can easily be counteracted if you simply ask your server if they have any dinos to spare. You'd be surprised how generous people will be with dinos, and it can make your experience 10 times easier. That is, of course, if you're on a PvE server. If you're on a player versus player server, well, you're fucking crazy. Now, the presentation. First off, let me say this game is a goddamn liar. You may see the trailers for ARK and think it looks super amazing, but truth be told, it is still a rather unoptimized and slow and kind of ugly game. Now, it has come a long way, I think, since the first release of the game. I no longer have to view the world in PS2 era graphics. We are at least at the beginning of the PS3 era right now with the graphics, at least on my end. Even monster computers, though, have difficulty running this game on its highest settings, so don't be expecting it to look like it does in the trailers at all. The menus are all functional, everything works at least most of the time, but server-side lag is a major issue this game has never fixed. You can tell at the very least, though, that the people making this game know how to make things pretty, if maybe that is the only thing they know how to do. In terms of sound, it is kind of cool that all the different dinos sound different, and there is a sound effect for everything pretty much, so it's at least all there, but I don't know if there's anything spectacular in terms of the design of it. It's just, you know, there. It's not bad, it's not great, but it's alright. In terms of music, I hope you really like this theme, because it's pretty much the only one they have and ever use. Now, on to the next point. So, I often only keep my reviews to the main gameplay and presentation categories, but I sometimes add a third category if I think it is relevant to the quality of the game, and I think this absolutely is. So, the third point, the developers. Oh my god, these developers have to be some of the scummiest people I've ever seen, and it makes it worse because they actually seem capable in some aspects, so it's a damn shame when these devs waste their talents. To start off, they seem to have a total disregard for their player base, almost contempt for it. There was one time that they said to the community they would release a new goat dinosaur if they were voted for in the Steam Awards, and only if they won that Steam Award. Essentially what they were saying was, even though we promised you that we would release new dinosaurs, we're going to hold this dinosaur off unless you vote for us and unless we win a Steam Award. On top of that, they're just mean and snarky to anyone who criticizes them. Just last week, they rolled out a massive nerf to flying mounts, like an hours of time wasted nerf trying to get your dinosaur to be faster is just gone now. They're slow as hell now. The worst part of this whole situation was that they knew people loved flying mounts and how fast they were, and they knew it would cause people to leave the game if they nerfed them, so instead of reconsidering their decision, they put the game on sale for $10, and that way their player base would even out. So they were just sort of like, oh, bunch of people are going to leave, let's put the game on sale and we'll get more people to play. And this is just one of numerous examples of them just being, in general, shitty people. There was a lawsuit filed against the ARK development team, which I guess they weren't going to win. They broke some sort of rule and they were going to have to pay out a large amount of money. So they paid out $20 million to a different company, and that was in order to settle it out of court. So this is the reason why people speculate they launched a $20 DLC, the $20 DLC of ARK Scorched Earth. However, that completely destroys all of their credibility because they're releasing DLC for a game where DLC is supposed to be free and released constantly for their game to be completed. And the worst part is, they're not even sorry about it. Take a look at this interaction between a developer and a concerned fan of the game. The fan is like, hey, I really like your game, I think it's one of the best, but you launching DLC is kind of shitty. And then you just can see this developer's response here. And you could stop the video at this point. Tell me this response doesn't make you cringe at how swarmy and just sort of gross his ideology is. They just don't care what players want, and they really show prominent signs of being amateurs. Some things in the game are very well done and deserve praise. Other things are just boneheaded and make no sense. Take, for instance, electrical cables and generators for your base. You place them down, and you expect, like, okay, cables and stuff are going to line up to my base, right? No, they don't. The dimensions of the cables won't line up with your base. If you try to build up, they will go too high past the ceiling and not line up with the floor. If you go down, they will go past the floor and you won't be able to see them. The reason for this is that the people who made the electric cables put it on a different grid than your bases are on, which makes no sense at all. It just shows that the people making this game weren't talking to each other. Also, they can't go a patch without breaking their game. They have absolutely zero QA testing, and they make small updates all the time that break things. Last week, they broke berry picking. You couldn't pick berries or fiber for a little while, which is essential for some players. Last night, in their game about riding dinos, they broke dino riding. If you tried to ride a dino, you actually couldn't move. They don't test this stuff. They just throw it out and fix it after the fact. And just to comment on their amateurism, the game in Task Manager, like on your computer, is actually called Shooter Game, the basic default template for first-person games in the Unreal 4 engine. Either they forgot to actually name the game, or they didn't care enough to. On top of all of this, there is no vision behind the game, no end goal for what this game will be. For the past 2 years, they've just been adding dinos and whatever the hell they feel like. That's it. The gameplay hasn't really changed, and no optimization has happened, but we have fucking unicorns now, so there's that. See, with a game like this, you have to have parameters set in place so you don't go off the walls with your ideas. And they've gone off the walls with their ideas, to the point where it seems like they're jumping the shark. I mean, they've added grappling hooks and unicorns and sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their frickin' heads. Are you serious?
You know, I have one simple request, and that is to have sharks with frickin' laser beams attached to their heads. Can you remind me what I pay you people for? Honestly, throw me a bone here.
This is not hyperbole. They actually have that. Why don't we just go to space next, huh? ARK in space with spacesuits for the dinos. What is this? So now the scoring. Most of you know how my scoring system works. If you don't, you can click right here. I'll have a suggested thing appear somewhere. So we will start off with the professional score. To someone who is neutral, how is ARK Survival Evolved? Well, the game has a bit of a learning curve to it, but that doesn't make it bad. So a neutral person will probably think this game is a 4 out of 5 good game. Now my score. At the end of the day, I love this game, and I want nothing more than to give it a 4, maybe even a 5, but I can't. The developers' lack of optimization, of care for their fan base, of QA testing, of releasing their game finished, of vision, shows me that this game isn't there yet. And it is for those reasons I have to give this game a 2 out of 5 bad score. I didn't want to do it, but I had to. Bringing the total score to a 6 out of 10 average game. This game could be one of the best of all time, but the developers shoot themselves in the foot over and over again. Huge tribes of people leave the game now, and I'm scared it might be dead in the water if the developers don't change their attitude, which it looks like they aren't going to. If you like this video, please like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more reviews. I'm Sir Neck, and I'll see you next time.